Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Blood Red Throne, Imperial Congregation, out October 8th on Nuclear Blast. This album has 10 tracks, 46 minutes in length, and this is the band's 10th full-length studio album. They are a Norwegian death metal band. Now, this is a record that could be defined with one word: consistency. It's consistent across every single element. It has an old school death metal style as far as sound, but also as far as the structure goes. Very linear. What you see at the beginning is exactly what you're going to see at the end. There's no ebbs and flows, there's no peaks and valleys, just balance and consistency, keeping this record together, sometimes a little bit too much, which makes it difficult for the listener to identify specific nuances within the songs and allowing those songs to perhaps drive the experience. It all becomes about the collective. Now, once you get into the soundscape, this is a heavy album, brutal at times, a lot of power, a lot of intensity, and I feel like there's three elements that when they come together become the heartbeat or the soul of the overall soundscape, being the drums, bass, and guitars. This is an album that while you can define what each and every one of them is doing, the overall sound and the overall heaviness of the record really comes from all three working well together and pulling you in the exact same direction at the same pace, with the same momentum, with the same intent. That is perhaps the DNA or the signature soundscape that you're going to get throughout this album. I absolutely love the bass, to start off by talking about that one element. I love how much it peaks up. You would see perhaps an album like this that has so much heaviness, so much power, so much aggression that the bass would be a little bit hidden and it would be very hard for the listener to define exactly what is happening. It's not the case with this record. It peaks up, it comes up, it becomes a little bit of the cornerstone that allows the definition of the songs to be slightly better, or at least slightly richer. I really like how much of the bass is used, and I really like how much of the bass the listener is allowed to experience throughout every single song on this album. And they work really well, the sound that's coming out of the bass and the experience that the bass is giving with what the drums are doing. The drums are consistent on this album, very balanced, but at the same time they feel like they have two speeds. It's either super aggressive or aggressive. So you're either going to get one or the other from song to song, but even within songs themselves, that volatility is always there, it always exists, and it becomes a little bit of the motor that pushes the record forward, but still keeping it very balanced, very together, allowing some sort of unity to exist across all 10 songs. The guitars, on the other hand, have a very interesting element because they drive more of the experience, sometimes connecting themselves with the other two, the bass and the drums, in order to create this substance, in order to create volume, in order to create heaviness, and it becomes really hard to define roles between those three because they just merge with one another. And then it moves a little bit outside the box and becomes a little bit more driven, a little bit more melodic, adding a little bit of grit to the overall soundscape. So the guitars are perhaps the most dynamic element of this album, but not dynamic enough to break away from this record feeling like the album has this incredible fluidity from song to song with so many things happening. No, this is a very consistent album. You can find the differences within the songs, but at the end of the day, when you get to the end of the 10 tracks, the sense of everything coming together as one is really what you're going to walk away from this record with, including the vocals. The vocals is another element of consistency. What you get with the first song is what you're going to get all the way through. There are a few things changing here and there, but not enough for you as a listener to really feel like this was an incredibly dynamic, vocally driven album. It's not the case. The vocals are heavy, the vocals are brutal, they add intensity, they add aggression. I felt they worked really well in terms of telling you what the lyrics were all about and perhaps packing a little bit of a stronger intent into those lyrics, but they stay consistent, they stay together, they allow the record to have a little bit of more glue on top of the glue that I already had as far as what the drums were doing and the overall album construction is concerned. So this makes the album feel even more compact, it makes the album feel even more together. I think that perhaps the problem that this album offers is that it's too compact and it's too together. It needed a song here and there that really breaks the mold. But at the same time, if you're going to go with an old school death metal style approach as far as an overall record and soundscape is concerned, then this is the album that you want. An album that stays as one, that is really meant to be heard as one, and not necessarily pulling a song here and there that break away from that traditional sense of building an album. I would have liked to see something different, maybe even an interlude here and there, or an intro and an outro, something to just define a little bit more of the parameters of the record and not allowing the album to have just this incredible sound, incredible presence that just covers everything else and makes it very hard for the listener to break through that mist. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Imperial Congregation, opening track. When I look at an opening song, I look for a song that gives me a little bit of a glimpse, a synopsis of what the whole record is going to be all about. That's exactly what this song does. The drums are thunderous, the guitars drive the melody, you have the vocals on top of it that are very robust. The bass peaks in here and out. You hear it constantly throughout the track. The drums and vocals become more consistent. The guitar is a little bit breaking from that, becoming a little bit more driven, becoming a little bit more of the motor that pushes you forward outside of the heaviness that the other two are giving you. And that is pretty much how this song is put together, and that's pretty much how this whole album comes across. Next, you have Transparent Existence, a little bit more of a methodic track. Drums, bass, guitar, all three working together as one single unit, pushing the track forward. Sometimes a little bit more chunky, sometimes with a little bit more volume, a little bit more grittiness, always aggressive, always with intensity. This makes the song feel at times a little bit linear, but there is enough within it that changes ever so slightly that makes a track seem a little bit more interesting and see a little bit more dynamic. And that is what I was said before in terms of the drums, sometimes more aggressive, sometimes just aggressive. And I felt on this track everything was moving that way. Sometimes the song is really in your face, and sometimes it takes a little bit of a step back, but it's always within that area. It's always within that sense of aggression and moving forward at a very methodic pace, like I said. But a great song with great solo that adds great energy to the track, and that was really one of the important moments of this song all around, because it breaks a little bit away from the mold and makes the song feel a little bit more interesting in terms of what it has to offer from a soundscape perspective. Last but not least, We All Bleed. This is my favorite track on the record. I just love how heavy it is. I love how much power it has. The guitars really complement what the drums and bass are doing. The bass still comes into the forefront ever so slightly throughout the whole entire track, but it really becomes about the drums and guitars and how they alternate in terms of who commands the aggression of the song, in terms of who pushes this song forward, in terms of who makes this song feel heavy at any given time. Sometimes it's the drums, sometimes it's the guitar, sometimes it's both of them. This makes the track really interesting, really dynamic, really coming to life from beginning to end, across all the different elements, across the drums, bass, and guitars, and then the vocals kind of bring it all together, being that glue that holds it as one. This is it. Blood Red Throne, Imperial Congregation, out October 8th on Nuclear Blast. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.